right, Chris, I think we're live, bruh. Welcome
Hello,
back,
mate.
everybody.
How
I
we
see
doing?
some people slowly funneling in. We're about to get started here at the Film Hang. This weekend, we have a super special discussion about Antoine Fuqua's Michael, and we'll be diving into those bits. And I know Chris, who has a lot to talk about with this film, is super eager to get into the weeds with it and talk about what some of the controversy around this film is as well. So, Chris, how you feeling? You all connected? You ready to roll?
I'm good. I'm all up and rolling. You're good. I can hopefully people can hear me. So yeah, this is how we want it to be. I'm looking forward to talking about this.
Well, everyone, I think we're ready to go. What's up? We got some people dropping some comments in the chat. So, Chris, I saw Michael this morning. I know that you've had a couple of days to process it. So we're both coming at different perspectives here. So I'm right off the presses, saw it at 9:15 a.m., which for those that don't go to the movies that early, Chris, I know you actually saw Michael at the same time on Thursday, which is awesome. And if you've never been to the movie for breakfast, I highly recommend it. It's probably one of the most sobering, best things you could do to kick off your day and just excel.
If you
Chris,
go to
how many
the Grove,
times?
you can get a coffee from the Starbucks and try and sneak it in. They've started taking it off you right now, but I go and get myself a coffee, sort of slide it in underneath my jacket, and then I sit there. I feel like I've got one over on people, and then I enjoy the film.
You know how many people smuggle in stuff to AMC, considering how outrageous their prices are? The other day, I literally just got like a Coke and a popcorn. Nothing too crazy. I paid $20 for that. No wonder there's like a whole illegal food trade that's going on at AMC's now, where you see people coming in with like margaritas and their own mixed drinks. I see it all the time, like women coming in with their big bags,
Stanley
pulling
Cup,
out
right?
the Stanley Cup with the nice shaken margarita, ready to go, fresh into a plastic glass, and there's nothing that AMC can do about it.
No,
But I think that's how we stick it back to them for raising their AMC stub prices recently.
you're absolutely right. And popcorn is like a 7,000% markup or something crazy, isn't it? You know, so I remember I was talking to somebody about this the other day, this guy Pierce, who's one of my mates, and we were talking about when I worked at the Odeon Cinema in Rochdale, back home in England, right? I was like an usher, as you call them out here, or whatever I was going to call myself over there, like a kind of screen cleaner. And I remember we used to find like people had took pizza boxes in, like takeouts, you name it. They'd smuggled stuff in. There was a bloke once, I caught him during Pirates of the Caribbean eating ramen. He had like a bowl,
Crazy.
like a full-on thing with like, you know, chopsticks and everything watching. But I didn't stop him because I was proud of the hustle, you know. But yeah, I mean, the price of popcorn's so much. We definitely, people are sneaking stuff in all the time. But yeah, I mean, dude, I saw this, both of us seeing it first time in the morning. I'm going to ask you the question. What were your thoughts?
I'll say this much, and Chris and I have been talking about this before getting into this episode, where I'll admit Michael was not a film that I was particularly excited about or had deep connection to. I've never been a major Michael Jackson fan. I appreciate him for who he is as an artist. And, you know, my wife really likes Michael Jackson. So the other night before going into this, we revisited a lot of his top like music video short films that he did, which, you know, he is a talent. There is really no question of that. But I also was born during the time where it was like the last third of his career, where I think Michael Jackson was potentially under the most scrutiny he ever was under as a public figure. And I got to know Michael Jackson through court proceedings in the tabloids and the way that we were all dissecting him as this individual in the late 90s, early 2000s leading up to his death. So I never celebrated Michael Jackson for what he was through the Jackson 5 and through his career in the 70s and 80s, to where he really started to become that seminal talent that we all know today and are, of course, celebrating within this movie. So I went in with that perspective and that background connectivity to Michael Jackson. And I'll say this, you know, I think for what it's worth, it serves the purpose for people that are very much Michael Jackson fans and want to go through the biggest hits and kind of see a little bit of behind the scene on his life. I think the craftsmanship is there. You can tell that there is a lot of money on screen in like specific sequences. The movie doesn't feel cheap or plasticky. I really do feel that in some circumstances they gave it their best. I think Jafar Jackson did a great job as Michael. I think he really stood out within this film, and I know that's something we'll spend some time talking about, considering that you were able to be on this production. I want you to talk
Mm.
about that. But yeah, overall, I think what we both agreed about and what I think is the biggest handicap is obviously the story itself and the writing. And I know that there was some stuff that you were telling me about having to rewrite and shoot stuff due to things that ultimately didn't allow them to tell certain aspects of the story. So I'd be curious to hear how much that altered from the original script to now. But I think
Mm.
that's the worst part of the movie is it never feels like it gets nuanced enough in any specific moment. The energy is there, the excitement to learn about Thriller or the excitement to learn about like Billie Jean or any of the other processes also glazed over because it's
Mm.
moving so quick. And I think that's always the biggest problem with these like cradle to grave style biopics, even though this one is going to have a part two, which then likely leads up to the final moments of his life. I think Michael Jackson, being this enigmatic figure that he is, that's so big and so hard to tell in a film, it does just ultimately feel a little rushed, you know? But that
Mm.
doesn't mean that it's not enjoyable or the acting's not good, or you could say, oh, that was quite clever. It's just, it's not going to be the nuanced film that I feel like those that are the critics and those that maybe want this really like, all right, who was really Michael Jackson? You're not going to get that from this movie. That's
Yeah.
just not, that's not it. But what are your
Yeah.
thoughts?
Did you feel? I'll get into my thoughts in a second, but did you feel like when you were sitting there, there was something that was missing, or it was like the elephant in the room that was always kind of like that, missing from the film? Is that what you were thinking when you were experiencing it? I'm
Yeah, it's hard.
intrigued. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, it's hard to say because to be honest, I don't even know a lot about the stuff that went on in Michael's life. I just was never
Mm-hmm.
that person that really cared about Michael Jackson and wanted to spend a bunch of time learning about him. I feel like, yes, there probably could have been something that like spoke to him on a more personal level with more depth. You know, it never really felt like it really hung into who is Michael Jackson when no one was looking. It always was as if
Mm-hmm.
Michael Jackson was the same character no matter what. That
Mm.
person that's in front of an audience and is this larger than life celebrity, and the hardest things in his life happen to be because of his father. But like, what else? You know, like, was there anything else to Michael Jackson? Like, I think that's where it
Mm.
draws short. Is it always kind of it always fulfills the fantasy of Michael Jackson. Then who
Mm.
is he outside of all the like the music, the celebrity, even the scandal? It's like, who is this guy really? Or is he
Yeah.
just always on? Is he just always Michael Jackson? Is there nothing else to this character?
Yeah, I mean, presumably that's what they're planning on bringing in the second part. But you're right. In watching this as a standalone movie in itself, there is that lack of scandal, I suppose, that people were
Yeah.
possibly expecting when this film was going to come out.
Mhm.
I think what interested me was when I went, because I went to see it, as you said, first thing in the morning. There were people in my theater that were dressed up, and you're seeing it online right now. If it's on your algorithm, if it's not, then you're probably not seeing it. But the size of the crowds is absolutely astronomical. I mean, we're talking about a movie that has so far made, I think it's over 100 million domestically and over 217 million. One of my friends was texting me today, worldwide. We're crossing $250 million by the end of tonight. That is meaning it's putting it on the same level as Barbie and as Oppenheimer and as Avatar. We're talking about a seriously seismic movie in that respect. You know what I mean? We're talking about the biggest biopic audience of all time, opening weekend of all time. And as I said, I went and there were people dressed up. I was walking through the Grove. There were people literally dressed as, like the smooth criminal dancers. There's people who are. I'm seeing videos. I mean, don't get me wrong. It would piss me off. It was in my cinema, but there's people dancing at the front during the sort of concert sequences. You know what I mean? It's like we're looking at remember when I keep talking about that RRR in the Indian movie, Triple R or whatever
Yeah.
you want to call it, right? Whenever I say it in my accent, it sounds horrendous, right? But they were having fireworks going off inside. I don't think they were dangerous fireworks, but they were having things going off while that was being screened. You know what I mean? And it's kind of not really like our average cinema experience. It's something like being at a concert, I imagine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A Michael Jackson concert, which I never got fortunate enough to go to. And it's interesting, you know, and I'll say this on the controversy before we get into the film itself, you know, knowing that we were covering this today, I've had text messages from people who I know who've been saying, you know, oh, you know, you're not going to promote that film. Some people have said you're not going to promote the film about Michael Jackson because of all the things he did. And I've had that come through. And I'll be honest, it's a difficult thing to kind of, you know, not address, because you want to focus on the film and I want to focus on the film. I want to talk about the film itself. But at the same time, we also have to go, yeah, there's these allegations that never really got put to rest. You know, there's documentaries out there that cover a different side of Michael to the one we're seeing in this film, you know. But we can't not cover it. It's one of the biggest films of all time. And right now in the cinemas, it's all that you're seeing. Like, it is people filling cinemas right now. And it's amazing, you know. And you're right, Sweeney. I got to work on it, so I got to experience it. And I'll be honest, the people that I worked with, you know, on this were serious artists, you know, and you can actually see that come through in the film. Like, there were some really, really cool artists working on this film. And I only worked on the reshoots. I'll say this as well, something that's come out in the press recently that somebody who was on a podcast was talking about, was saying, oh, Antoine wasn't on set for the reshoots. Well, that's total rubbish. He was there every single day. He was on set. He was shooting this, you know. Now, I don't want to break NDAs left, right, and centre here, but that's just a false story online that for some reason has come out. It's totally unfounded. Yeah, go on.
And what do you think that they're trying to say with that? Are they trying to have some type of like leverage against the movie by saying the reshoots were unguided by even its director? Like, what are they trying to make the point of?
I think so. I think that what we've got now is a real tribal situation in most ways. There's a love or hate. And that is in everything. That is in news stories. That is in politics. That is in everything. There is this tribal thing of, if you either love something and you really love it, and people will go and see this movie 25 times, 50 times, you know what I mean? And then there's, you know, using their AMC membership up. And then there's other people who will be vehemently against it because they've seen the documentaries and they've, you know, seen interviews online, some of which have been cropped, some of which are full interviews, you know. So they have this other opinion and they will vehemently be against it. And to be honest, I think that the difficult bit is right now is finding people in a world where you can actually walk down the middle line and sort of assess both sides. You know what I mean? You can appreciate this movie that it's been made for the fans, which is exactly what they were doing it for. They made it for Michael Jackson's fans. You know what I mean? Now, there'll be people who will say, I could never be a fan of his because of everything he's done. I've got different morals. And that's totally fine. I agree with them, you know, in certain respects.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, I went and saw this movie because I saw what went into it. And I can appreciate it as a piece of art on its own, about an incredibly flawed artist that's not being shown fully in this film for several reasons. I mean, like, it's not, I can come out and say this about what's in the press, and what's true about that is obviously, yes, there were segments of this film that dealt with that. Antoine Fuqua in Variety said the original opening of this movie was going to have Michael being arrested at Neverland Ranch, 1993. So like you said, when the allegations and everything started coming out and when things started happening, you know, publicly about him. But when what happened was, there's a guy, the accuser, Geordie Chandler, and his family weren't allowed to be depicted in a movie. It is, you know, pretty much what's being said in these Variety interviews and in the press and everything. So they had to go back after shooting and having finished shooting and get a rewrite from probably a writer who's probably working on other things and has moved on. He's had to go back and rewrite, you know, and undo all these strands and all these threads and all this tapestry that he's already made, that's already been finished. And he's having to redo it again. I imagine Antoine as well, as the director, who is famous for being solely focused on edits and really hard on the edit and hardly, you know, strongly involved in the edit. You know, he's probably sat there and was reaching a point that he was really pleased with in terms of telling a solid story that's got the controversy in there. And it's had to be removed. You know, the strong legal battle, all of that kind of stuff would have been probably very, this is going to demean it now, but like very much like that American story, the O.J. Simpson one with Cuba Gooding Jr. in it. You know what I mean? It's probably going to have like a legal battle like that, a huge O.J. Simpson style thing. But obviously, then this happens. There's a legal thing that comes out, and the estate have then got to pay for, a round of reshoots to get this. I mean, what do? You tell me, Brennan. What would you do? You've made this movie. It's cost over $150 million. And then it's like, right, now you've got to undo all the strands and do it again.
Right.
Or you just scrap it. And can you scrap a movie of this magnitude? Is the question that's being asked. And, sorry, go on, Brendan.
No, and I think that's something that people have to factor in when watching this movie, at least to what we understand and what you experienced on set by being a part of the reshoot block. There was the original intention of trying to have what could have been maybe a more nuanced perspective of Michael based on the allegations starting in 1993. And that was going to be one of my questions, was where was the allegation that they were going to be talking about in this film going to play in? Was it at the end? Was it at the beginning? And that's an interesting way to tell a story about a figure that's larger than life. And, for those that are against the movie for how kind of glazed over and washed out all of those aspects are, like, they do have a point, because the film never really shows Michael. I mean, and this is not Jafar Jackson's job, because I really do think he did a great job with the lack of subject matter that was ultimately left on the plate. But his character is extremely one note from the start of the movie to the end. There really isn't much development in Michael Jackson's character outside of him just wanting to do better and then do even better and then do even better. Like, that's really the only like carry through for his character in terms of like what his goals are, is that he just wants a better world, which is fine, because I think that was a big part of Michael's image at the time, but it doesn't really get caught into any other aspect of his life besides the relationship with his father, which by the end of the movie, it doesn't even matter, So,
yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, yeah, you're right. I think that it is a bit surface deep in that respect. And I heard somebody, I think it was Mark Kermode, who's one of my favorite reviewers. If anybody doesn't listen to it, I think it's Simon Mayo and Mark Kermode are two British guys. They're like the British version of Ebert and Siskel, and they're great. And Mark Kermode does a review of every movie as soon as it comes out. And he talked about this, and he said I think he called it hagiamonic, as in like it really does sort of make a messiah out of Michael and sticks in that sort of vein of him being messiah-like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And do you know what? It's strange because, as I said, I took my, I don't think I said this actually, but I took my mother-in-law and my wife along, and we watched it, whatever it was, Thursday, Friday morning, whatever it was. Yeah. First thing. And it was like, my mother-in-law loved every second of it. You know what I mean? She really did. And she literally leant forward and was like, this is brilliant. And I think there is sort of a world where it sort of appeals to sort of people who just want something skinned deep, not to go too deep, not to go into not like Ray level biopic that goes into his drug abuse and it shows him sort of having a withdrawals and all that kind of stuff in the hospital bed.
Right.
I don't think they wanted something like that. I think they've seen so much stuff politically, everything on the news, everything on the TV, everything with Epstein, everything that's been going on with everything, and this really polarized society. And they realized that what they wanted to celebrate was like Michael's music, and this music that seemed to bring people together in the past, if I remember correctly. You know what I mean? As I said, like I was saying to you before, and every kid at my school at the age of 7 was going to the costume party at the end of school, or like on Halloween or something, dressed as Michael Jackson. Yeah. That was the world I was brought up in. We all had Dangerous album. We were all listening to it. It was like Taylor Swift. You know what I mean? And you can kind of see that now, the way people are dressing, the way people are turning out in their shirts and stuff like this. Again, we have this real kind of strange duality where it's like, there's people who don't even want to kind of acknowledge that there was anything really sort of negative with Michael, and they want him to be a messiah. And, I feel like being on set, there were people who were really loved Michael. You know what I mean? And you could really sense it. His family were there as well. They, you know, there was a lot of his family who turned up and they were, you know, watching on the monitors and stuff at Video Village. You know, like there was people who were like that, people who were dressing up, you know, and wearing stuff at times as well. You know, like Graham King at one point, you know, was very much about Michael and was talking lovingly about Michael on set. So there was that kind of thing, you know. But mate, as I said, for me, being involved in making it, and as I said, I was PAing. It wasn't like I was doing anything, you know, really artistic. To watch these artists, to watch Dion Beebe lighting a scene, you know, like that, the scene where young Michael is singing, and Berry Gordy's listening to him. Spoiler alert, sorry, but it's early on in the film, right? But where that bit where Giuliano's singing as Michael in that's at United Recordings, which is right at Sunset Gower Studios up here, right? And you walk through and they've got it all set ready for the day and everything, and it looks like 1970. And you're walking past Thriller, the album on the wall, the platinum, the original, right there. You know what I mean? You're walking past the This Is It tour album, like platinum on the wall. You know what I mean? So you're walking past into a place where historically this happened. You know, and they're filming this, and you're watching Dion Beebe lighting the scene so that you get the records, the wheels turning, reflecting in Berry Gordy's face, kind of thing. You know what I mean? And you can see him between. It's just brilliantly shot, like a gorgeous shot. You know what I mean? And you're watching this guy do it. There's a VFX guy who worked, the VFX team are amazing, but half of them worked on Arrival with Denis Villeneuve. You know what I mean? One of the guys designed the circular language, you know, that kind of squelch language, right? The circles for Arrival for Denis Villeneuve. You know what I mean? Like, these are artisans. There's people who were working on this film who were absolute artists at what at their, like, the top of their craft. There's a guy, then they brought them together into this amazing team to make this film. You know, another one was this guy John Warhurst, right? He's won the Oscar for sound design, right? And he was telling me these amazing stories. I really hope that he gets interviewed on podcasts. And if he doesn't, I should phone him up and see if we can get him on this. He won for Bohemian Rhapsody for doing the sound design on that, and for the Queen thing. And for this one, he was going to different, like, stadiums and arenas and recording from various areas. You know what I mean? So that they could get the sound exactly right for where you are when you're watching him on stage, like at Wembley. You know what I mean? Or at the Dodger Stadium when he's doing that. It's just bonkers. Like, this is the level of craft that you're seeing. You know, it's Oscar level. You know, so for me making it, I was just thoroughly enjoying being amongst these people. You're watching from production down just how incredibly precise they are. You know, costumes. I got to work with costumes. I was doing like fittings, so when all costume people were turning up, and like you've got these sequin things. Like I said, Marcy Rogers' costumes are there. You know.
Aren't some of the costumes legit too? Didn't they take them from like Lady Gaga and people that collected his different like outfits throughout the years? I think a lot of them are the like legitimate outfits.
Yeah, Lady Gaga's collection apparently is the largest of any Michael Jackson costumes in the world. So I think she lent them to production to use. You know, it's just bonkers. As I said, it's really bonkers. And I was watching it, you know, seeing like where they cut scenes and stuff like this, because that's another thing that like I really enjoy about Antoine Fuqua films. You know what I mean? I really think this is going to be a real shot in the dark here, but I really think he's our Tony Scott. You know, since Tony's sad passing, I really see Antoine Fuqua as somebody stepping into that sort of void left by Tony Scott. I've always thought that. I thought it when I was watching Training Day. He did a movie, like, I've done this great swipey for people on Instagram, but he did like Replacement Killers was one of his, I think it was his first feature, which is a really cool, sort of gritty, sort of gang movie. There's some really cool movies that he's done. You know, like Olympus Has Fallen. Antoine got a really low rating on that off Rotten Tomatoes. Again, it was like a 36%er from the reviewers, and then it became an absolute hit. Like, you know, massive. Yeah, I think it did 150 million at the box office, something crazy. Like, it was a hit. Yeah, type in Olympus Has Fallen. Yeah, that was it. Morgan Freeman.
I didn't know.
Oh,
I didn't
mate,
know
you've
he
never
directed
seen this.
I've seen it. I did not know he directed this.
in the same year that this came out, White House Down came out, and it was pretty much the same movie. And they
I
ripped
remember
him off.
White House Down.
Right. Olympus Has Fallen was better. It was the original, right? And this was great. And as I said, on Rotten Tomatoes, they wrote some. I nearly called it Red Tomatoes. On Rotten Tomatoes, they wrote some real like kind of negative about it, and it got 36%. And I was like, I'm still going to go see it. And it turned out so did most of the people, and it was awesome. Like it got really great audience reviews. Replacement Killer, that's it.
Yeah,
John
you've
Woo,
seen
I
this?
think it was. Yeah, John Woo movie. So if you like, what else did John Woo do? Did he do Mission Impossible 2? Was that John Woo?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. I don't know if that's John Woo.
I thought it was, but I could be wrong. It could be Ang Lee.
So I guess going back to Michael, talk to me about like this script and stuff, because did you get to read the original draft of the script or no?
No, I'm a PA, mate. It's way above my pay grade. So I was getting dailies. Oh, sorry, not dailies. Sorry, sides on the day. You know what I mean? And even then, nowadays, they're protective of sides. So you're merely taking the sides and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I don't think you're even meant to read them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I never saw the script. I think only very few people outside of the people making it saw the script. You know what I mean? Which is why it's been so veiled. And when this came out in Variety, it's like, okay, well then that doesn't matter. But I was brought on board by my friend who works for Lionsgate, and he said, "Oh, they're doing reshoots on this film. Do you want to be involved?" And I was like, "Absolutely." So that's how I came on as a PA. But yeah, I mean, like the movies. So the changes are going on behind the scenes, you know, and we're being told we might be shooting. You know, I think this happens on most shoots, but we might be shooting here on this day. We might be shooting here on this day, and stuff like that. That's how it happens. So it gets changed around.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I don't know if they were still writing the script then or not, but I mean, it's John Logan. He's one of the greatest of all time. This is the guy who did Gladiator. It's the guy who did Last Samurai is one of my favorite of his scripts. Like Last Samurai is baller. Yeah. Last Samurai is an amazing script.
I mean,
honestly.
You also love The Aviator, Skyfall.
I love The Aviator script. On saying that went through 15 rewrites apparently. It's a Graham King film as well, who's the producer. So that went through 15 rewrites. You know what I mean? He did Skyfall is awesome. Just a great script. But I think he wrote that with 2 other people. Same with Gladiator. But yeah, I mean, John Logan's a serious writer. You know what I mean? Did he do all the Equalizer films as well? I can't even see that.
I don't even think so. I don't think he did a single one. Yeah. Why do you think the critics were so upset about this movie? Obviously, it's sitting with a 39 out of 100. Right before this movie released, that was a really big buzz, and I know that you were telling me this. I want to say it was the Monday or the Tuesday all of the reviews started coming in before the launch of this film, and it essentially has been universally panned. There's a few people, if you look at the Metascore, one person, Screen Rant, who gave it a 90, but after that, the highest is a 55, going all the way down to Robert Ebert with a 25. And I bet you there's probably even some zeros in there for people.
There's some people who will happily give it a 0 out of 10 or whatever. You know what I mean? And think that's up to them if they want to do it. I'll personally say I don't think any film in the world deserves a 0 out of 10. And I've seen some right shite. But I mean, like, no, there's no film in the world deserves 0 out of 10. And you've seen this. You've watched this film this morning. I watched it a few days ago. There's bits that stick with you, and if it sticks with you, then it deserves more than a low marking because it's something that resonates with you. You know what I mean? There's one scene I remember vividly, and from having seen the film, that stuck with me. And as soon as something sticks with me, I'm like, right. There's something in that. There's something that has provoked a reaction in me or provoked a memory and provoked me to constantly keep thinking about it and trying to work it out. And that happened in this film. So therefore, there's no way I would ever give it, the low marks that it's got. I think there's some people who have got kind of biopic kind of fatigue. You know what I mean? There's been a lot of music biopics. It feels like another cinematic universe. Like we've got the DC universe, we've got the Marvel universe, we've got whatever, and then this is the music biopic universe. I think it's Graham King's music biopic universe because he did Bohemian Rhapsody and he kept Mike Myers in as pretty much a record producer in this as he did in that. So maybe it's the Mike Myers is like the connection. It's part of the Cornetto trilogy. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, I think people might have got music biopic fatigue. I think,
Yeah.
there is a template that people seem to stick to with music biopics. But then again, musicians go through very similar things. It's a bit like filmmakers. I was doing the Antoine Fuqua one. I was like, I'm blown away by this. Like he was a PA on this, and then he did this, and then he did that, and then he spent his own rent money on like getting his first short film made. And it's like, well, I spent my rent money on my film. You know what I mean? I'm fairly certain you did as well, Brendan. So it's like, yeah, filmmakers go through this. If you look through, I imagine Paul Thomas Anderson took all of his money, I think he did actually, from AFI, and put it into his first film. Like, like that seems to be kind of like a stock epithet of filmmaker journey. Same with music people. There's the moment when they realize they've got something that nobody else in the world has got, and we saw that in this movie. There's a moment
Yeah.
where there's, the shocking moment, but there's also enough difference in this. Like we see Michael and his brothers is a very interesting dynamic, I think. One of the people I absolutely love in this that I've not seen as a character in other things is Bill Bray, played by Keelan. I think it's Keelan Darrell Jones. By the way, he was awesome. Came out drinking with the crew on Friday nights. He was the guy. He was awesome. What a great guy. Keelan Darrell Jones played Bill Bray, right? Who was Michael's sort of like bodyguard throughout his life, or his driver, right? And I thought, he's been brought in by Joe Jackson to look after Michael, and protect Michael against all odds. And by the end, he ends up protecting Michael from Joe Jackson, Michael's father,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's like that beautiful arc. I thought his was great. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, it is, as I said, I think there's that music biopic fatigue. I think as well, I think that a lot of people, like we said at the beginning of this, they wanted to see Michael be arrested, and the whole thing of that, and see the downfall, maybe see the negative side of it and everything like that. I mean, like, I wonder how far they would have gone into that. I don't know. I genuinely
But
don't. And I think that if there's people who want that, there's going to be people who want that, but there's other people who definitely don't want to see that. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And that's why we're seeing such a sporadic array of marks, because some people want, as close to truth as possible, and some people want to be taken into a fairy tale like dream. And that's your two sides. So you're seeing that sporadic marking. Sorry, go on, Brendan. You're going to say something.
No, I saw Coleman Domingo's argument. He was on that talk show or some podcast or something recently, making the argument of why this film in particular doesn't go into a lot of that stuff. Maybe it could have in the initial draft, but this ends right before the allegations. I think it ends in 1988, doesn't it? It doesn't. We don't even enter into the 90s yet. So I don't know what the timeline was for the allegations that ultimately surfaced in 1993. I don't know if what he did happened prior to that in the 80s and could have been talked about in this movie, or if this second film, since the allegations happened in 1993, it would make more sense for it to be in this second movie. Like I said, I don't have all the details with Michael, but his argument was that wasn't even a part of his life yet, where this first movie ends, which is why the second movie would then go into a lot of that.
He hasn't moved out of the family home yet. That's literally the next move, clearly, because we saw him in this movie, again, spoiler alert, looking down at the book, Peter Pan, seeing Neverland. You can see the little sign. You can see how it looks. He's constantly looking at Neverland. It's like, this is where he wants to go, right? This is him separating himself from the family. And we finish with him saying, that's that, right? Now, they go the separate ways. Two planes going off in opposite directions. They go in different ways, right? And he's going to end up going, obviously, to Neverland, right? And if that's when the allegations start, when he's living on his own, when he's inviting people around to his house, then that would make sense in that respect. So where the movie finishes, you know what I mean? We haven't had any of that happen yet. You know what I mean? And they've just decided to cut that entire thing out and go, right, this is where we're going to have him leave his family. I mean, yes, we have this flash forward to sort of like Wembley, but it's just showing like a music scene. That's it.
Right.
It's not really part of the story at all, other than, that's Michael going off on a solo career, and let's see how amazing he's going to be. So, yeah, I mean, this is sort of like a first part. This is sort of all the setup and everything like that, and yeah, I mean, look, like I said, there's people out there right now who are like, I went down to my local cinema, as I said, and it's just it's pretty wild over there right now. You know, like there's lots of people going to see this. You know, record numbers. And I'll say this as well, mate. You know, like the editing was choppy for me, but that's the sporadicness of Michael's life. I thought. You know what I mean? Like there was points where I was like, oh, I wish we could just have moments like that scene where Joe's talking to the Jacksons, to them as a family, and basically saying, look, we're going to do this Pepsi commercial, we're going to do all this kind of stuff, right? That scene where we're just shooting it from the corner, I love that shot. Joe's sitting in that big black chair. Literally, it's in the Havenhurst house, which is where the Jackson family lived. They're all sitting there round in a circle and being told, this is what we're going to do. I think the mother's sitting in the room as well. Like the whole family are in this one room. And I was like, excuse me, I just wanted to stay there. You know what I mean? For the whole scene. You know what I mean? But we cut around. We had to cut close into Joe's face and stuff. You know, and that's just a choice. You know. By the way, the editor's wild, right? So we have the edit. There's 3 editors on the IMDb for this. If you want to bring that up, Brendan, right?
Yeah.
One of them's the guy that did, I think, La La Land, if I'm correct. Cooper, is it Tom Cooper? I've got it written down somewhere. What's his name? You've probably got it there in front of you. There's 3 editors. One of them's I think his name's Tom Cooper, who did La La Land, and then there's another guy, John Ottman. John Ottman.
Here we go.
I am desperate. I would love to get this guy on us to talk, because like this is a guy that was the composer who did Valkyrie, Tom Cruise and Chris McQuarrie, right? He did Superman Returns, the soundtrack, the composer, right? Taking John Williams' score and reinventing it, right? And then he was the editor on Bohemian Rhapsody, and then the editor on this. Like, going from composition to editing is it's a brave step, you know what I mean? And yeah, he just seems like a fascinating individual.
Dude.
Yeah. What a varied career. He's been a producer, he's been an editor, he's been a composer.
That's crazy.
He's chalking them off, mate. He's ticking them all off. Next, he's going to be doing set design.
This guy's working all the jobs in Hollywood.
I know. It's a bit like when you do like a film festival and you have like directed by Chris Haigh, edited by Chris Haigh, sound by Chris Haigh, sound design by Chris Haigh. Like it's like that, but like this guy's doing it with like $200 million movies. Good on
That's
him.
why Steven Soderbergh uses like his aliases for all of the different roles that he's doing in like the film credits, from DP to editor and all of this stuff. It kind of gets crazy after a while when it's just Steven Soderbergh everywhere. It's the same thing. Yeah.
I'll tell you this, one of the coolest things from when we were shooting as well. So there's 2 people who are employed on this who are choreographers who were with Michael on the whatever it was, like the This Is It tour, and I think a few others, you know what I mean? Like, but the guys are called Rich and Tone Talawega, right? And I put these guys in a carousel thing like earlier in the week, and these guys were choreographing, and I got to go down on a Saturday and just kind of be the PA that sort of checks in all the dancers and stuff, right? Sort of like, you know, just ticks them off on the thing, and then you have to send it into whoever to accounts, right? And I got to watch him dancing to Beat It for like the week leading up to filming Beat It. And that was like, when you're watching these guys, like, as I said, there must be 8 of them, just absolutely completely in sync for what is like a 3.5 long minute movie. Plus this silent bit where he's going I want to do the, and he's doing all this and he's flinging his arms around and he's spinning a circle and stuff like that, all in silence while they all watch him and stuff. And then they all start doing it together, right? I watched that like in this place in Burbank, this dance studio, and it was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. I was just marveling at how awesome dancers are. I was blown away. And don't get me wrong, like that sounds like the craziest thing, but honestly, that's true. I just sat there and was just like, this is bonkers. And you're watching this Jafar, like he turns up and he's like dancing around in like, you know, a pair of dance shoes, and you can see his feet are just crippled, and he's just absolutely crushing it. It was brilliant. As I said,
he killed it. I think that
Amazing.
he's probably the best part of the movie. Like I said, considering the subject matter he had to work with, his commitment, there were moments within Michael that I felt it was uncanny how close he was to being Michael Jackson. Like it wasn't just Jafar Jackson or someone playing Michael. It was honestly probably what I would say is one of the better performances since maybe Walking Phoenix doing Johnny Cash. Like it was that level of commitment. You could see it within his physicality. A lot of those set pieces when they were doing the dancing sequences and all of that stuff, it was really strong. I saw that comment come in.
I think we got a Russian bot.
I love that.
Tweeting us in the comments.
But that's where you saw the craftsmanship of the movie. And Rich and Tone, I believe Kira has even worked with them for the Joseph Kahn, Terry Crews commercial. I think they were the dance instructors. So or maybe it was Laker Girls. I can't remember. But that being said, yeah, there is this like larger, not only culture, but all of the people that knew Michael Jackson through his career who got to work with him, collaborate, create art, do exactly that. And even though Michael Jackson's no longer still involved, there's no denying the connective tissue of which he like made this stuff possible and gave people livelihoods that have gone on to do other stuff beyond just Michael Jackson, but like, all of these people still exist, and I'm pretty sure that's Graham King as well. Didn't you say he got to know Michael Jackson? That was a big part of his start. What was his backstory?
I wish, honestly, this guy, Graham King, as I said, the producer of Michael, and he produced Bohemian Rhapsody, and then before that he produced Aviator, and before that he produced The Departed, and this guy is a serious producer. GK Films is his company. Now, apparently, and I think this is pretty true. It's not like an apparently and it's a shocking thing. But apparently, he was working at the gas station in Encino when he first came over here to LA from London. And that's the gas station that's down the road from Havenhurst, where the Jackson family live. And when they're coming to fill up, and Bill Bray, the driver's coming to fill up, and when they're coming to fill their cars up with gas, he's obviously there, and he's chatting to them every day, because they're filling the tanks and everything, right? And then after that, he gets to playing football with them, hanging out with them on a more regular basis. And then, that's how he's got in with the family, and that's how he's obviously obtained the rights from the estate of Michael. So he's obviously been embedded with the Jacksons for an awful long time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you can sense it. It's a very personal story to him. You know what I mean? When he does these speeches on set and stuff, and as I said, like, that's all very private, I'm sure. I'm not going to look at but I don't think I'm telling stories out of school when he's standing up and doing speeches about, how important it is to him, really, about how important Michael is. And that's probably why it's got that kind of, the level that it's been pitched at is the level that, he's telling the story, I mean, like, I forgot where we were going with this, but yeah, I mean, they're a wonder. Like, the family are there all day, you know what I mean, all the time. You know what I mean? There's whether it's Your Majesty, which is Jafar's brother, he was there every day watching. You know what I mean? And he just was part of it, and he was an interesting person to talk to as well. I think he caught me trying to moonwalk at one point, just like backstage, like I thought I'll give it a practice. And I wasn't very good at it. Right?
You thought if there was any place to try to moonwalk, it would be on the set of Michael when everyone could scrutinize you for being awful.
Some grip said, you got to pull back the foot that's lifted, not the one that's on the floor. So I was like, okay, no problem. And I was like doing a bit of this. Like, I looked like I was walking like an Egyptian. And then, as I said, he just walked outside and he went, are you practicing the moonwalk? And I was like, maybe, like, I couldn't really lie. I had my hand on my heart like this. But yeah, he was there every day, and he was asking for film recommendations, which was bonkers, because I'm going, yeah, mate, have you ever heard of There Will Be Blood? And he's like, no. I'm like, mate, what? Like, this is it's like the top one of the last 100. You know what I mean? So yeah, I was giving him film recommendations every day. God knows if he watched any of those films, because I gave him a load of Ken Loach. I thought, this will misery him out. You know what I mean? Yeah, go watch Kes. Go and watch. I think I gave him Eyes Wide Shut as well. That'll open his eyes.
Oh,
You know
that's
what I
a
mean?
good one. You should have sent him the film Hang too to be able to watch as a companion piece.
I think I showed him
Anytime you
some
recommend,
look-offs.
oh yeah, that would even also be good. Something, Chris, I want to hear you talk about because I know you got to work kind of closely with Antoine, just being able to see his process as a director. What stood out the most from him, considering that you've studied his other movies, and what did you really like about his directorial style? Is there anything that you learned as someone that's also as a director, how to work with actors? And even considering you're seeing him in reshoots, which you even said earlier on is potentially exhausting to everybody, considering there was an original plan, and how everyone's coming back to the drawing board to be able to finish this movie, hopefully in the best way possible. Was there
Yeah.
anything that he did that you were really surprised about, and someone who hopes to operate on his level one day? What did you take away?
I don't think it's telling stories out of school to say that he directs on channel 1 on the walkies. So he has a walkie and he's talking through the walkie. Like sometimes he'll be have video of his village, his director's village, and he'll be walking through. The whole crew can hear him. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
He's talking through the scene to his AD. You know what I mean? Like from behind his video. I thought that was so cool because
Yeah.
you're a PA, mate. How close can you get to the action? Or sometimes pretty close. But how close can you get to literally hearing the director setting up the scene, and then the cinematographer Dion comes on and goes, "Yeah, Antoine, I'm gonna you listening to the dialogue of artists, true artists." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I thought that was really cool that he was on one and everybody kind of understood what the shot was going to be and where it was going to be and, kind of like what he was expecting. There was one point when we were doing that toy shop scene where the kids weren't like as excited as you wanted them to be, because he's like, come on, it's Michael Jackson. And you can hear him saying it through channel 1. He's going, look, we need these kids to be more excitable. It's Michael Jackson, like they're in a toy shop. They're seeing this like basically Taylor Swift of their era. I thought that was cool. And then the other thing he did was when we were shooting, I think it was going to be like a kind of like montage scene, when Off the Walls just come out.
Yeah.
And they're doing Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. I think that was the music. He's playing the music through so that you've got the rhythm of the scene. You know what I mean? And we did that regularly. So we could kind of feel, you could kind of sense this is how it's going to be edited together. So you're watching the scene, like the pullback on those two guys clinking glasses and stuff like that. Like, I think that openness with the crew in that respect was great. On our shoots, there was an openness there that you could kind of understand exactly. Everybody understood what the shot was going to be.
So from a
and
technical standpoint,
that comes down to John Wildermuth as well, the AD.
Yeah, I was just going to ask that.
Antoine and his AD had a really good relationship, or it felt like it. And it felt like John Wildermuth's great, by the way. If anybody ever wants to Google him, this guy has done some serious films. He worked for Tony Scott with Tony Scott for a long time, and he's very, very clever individual, very, very, focused, and like he's a brilliant AD, and he worked really well with Antoine. Like that kept it flowing. I mean, we were only there for what, a couple of months, you know what I mean? And it really kind of the pace was quick. We were filming all over the place. We were shooting up at Griffith Park, which is a nightmare. You've got hikers. There's so many hikers, so many hikers, so many horses. Like I never knew the footfall and the foot traffic of Griffith Park until we're filming there for a full day. That's him. That's John. Yeah.
Does he wear these glasses still?
Yeah, dude. He's a seriously cool guy, and his stories about Tony Scott were mesmerizing. I don't want to, I think I've probably relayed a couple on here, but he tells stories about Tony Scott. He did Boogie Nights with Paul Thomas Anderson. He did that opening scene, that Warner that goes down from the sign down, and there's a bunch of people lined up, and then it goes through and into the crowd, and then you meet every single character in Boogie Nights, and then it goes out onto the dance floor, and they're all dancing around and stuff, and then we meet Mark Wahlberg and Roller Girl, right? That whole scene, he told me a story about how they only had like 100 extras or something, right? And they were meant to have like 300 that day because they needed it for the whole walkthrough. And he was telling me this story about how they were all in the line to get in, and they're all wearing the jackets. And then as soon as the camera passed them, he sent everybody round the back through the kitchens. They all had to take the jackets off, and then they were dancing on the dance floor. So literally the camera, when it goes in, that's the same extras. They're all just dancing on the dance floor like 15 seconds later, 20 seconds later, and like little things like that. You just like, you know, you're in the hands of a real, a real professional in that respect. And I think that, yeah, Antoine and John, yeah, they had a real good relationship, or it felt like that, and
to pull off that directing style too, where he's talking through that type of pipeline, you have to have a good AD, because ultimately who's going to be able to relay. And I know that you said Antoine would come to set and work with the actors and do some stuff, but then be able to go to his monitor setup and work from there through John to be able to deliver those notes. I mean, you can see based on John's career, this guy has been working from the 1990s on steady, bigger films that only ramped up more and more. Crimson Tide. Then he went into Boogie Nights. He did The Fan. I mean, he was on Shane's The Rat Pack, which I know you were talking about. He shared stories about that, didn't he?
Yeah.
Did you talk? Yeah.
Yeah, I talked a little bit with him about that. I loved Shane's stories about that movie, to be honest. Like, there's one that he did in his newsletter that I had to write with him, and it was about the Don Cheadle scene where he's laid on this sort of white thing in a world of white. I think Shane said something like a black man in a world of white, and I thought it was such a brilliant description for that scene. Shane was trying to show segregation and everything within that one scene of him laying there and just watching the Democratic conversation on the TV, or whatever, the Democratic speech by John F. Kennedy on the TV. I was like, that was Don Cheadle, awesome scene. And
I've never seen The Rat Pack.
Oh, really? HBO movie?
You know what's annoying about HBO from this time? They don't have these movies on HBO Max for whatever reason. You can't get The Rat Pack. It's like, why are 90s HBO movies not on HBO Max, and why can you just not get them anywhere? It's like these streaming services kind of push us towards, pirating stuff, which, hey, that's all up to them. You know what's awesome? He was also a first AD, it looks like only for the San Francisco segment of Rollerball, which this is an awesome, deservedly forgotten film from the early 2000s. Have you ever seen this movie?
I've seen the original Rollerball with James Caan. I've not seen this version.
I didn't even know that there was an original Rollerball. This is the only Rollerball for me.
Watch the original, mate. This is based on a game. You know that? There was a game on the Commodore Amiga that was called Rollerball that was about this game. You could play Rollerball.
And then what happened to it? Someone probably died. It was like a
little joystick game. Oh,
it was like a video game.
Yeah. This looks cool as hell, though, mate.
Well, it wasn't. It was definitely not cool.
I promise to watch this one if you promise to watch the original Rollerball with James Caan in it. And he's in like an orange thing and an orange helmet. Oh, dude, mate. It's a good night. No, but yeah, so going back to Michael, as I said, yeah, and then there's a story that came out this week again from somebody else who said that they were calling him Vantuan and stuff, which is like, it certainly wasn't on our shoot because he wasn't in the van all the time. But in the same way, if people are going to say that, directors have their village in a van, like that.
Yeah,
that's not uncommon. That's somebody who doesn't truly understand the protocol of sets. You know what I mean? Like, because there's vans all over sets that I've been on where there's been directors in the back because it's air conditioned, it's cooler, it's not blasted out with light. You know what I mean? Like, it's not uncommon. Oh, I'll tell you really cool. Go on.
No, I was going to say the last Jonathan Glazer film, which was amazing. He ultimately did that as well, where he built up a whole multicam production. Some productions are just different. I don't have an opinion on it. Don't get me wrong. I really like to be on set and next to the action when it's happening. I don't think me personally as a director would ever put myself in a van, but it really depends on the type of production you're trying to pull off and the technology.
Correct.
I wasn't there for Michael, but I'm assuming there was probably a lot going on where it benefited him maybe being in front of all of the outputs of all of the cam. Was it a multi-cam production or was it single cam?
I think we had A cam, B cam, and sometimes C cam as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'll say this: we shot on location. I don't know. I think he was in a tent. You know what I mean? Like, they tented him out so he could sit in and watch this on Video Village. We shot up Griffith Park, right? And it was sweltering. It's like midsummer 2025, okay? June. It's absolutely boiling, right? And they've put me as a PA on a lockup, right? Down a hiking trail, right? And mate, this went, just stop anybody coming up there, right? I promise this is true. I walked to the end of the trail and there's a cliff edge. Nobody's coming up my my bit of the trail, right? Nobody's going to bother me today. And they were, so I radioed through. I went, "Hey, I've just been put on lockup up here, but there's like a cliff edge here." And the key set just said, "Oh, just stay there just in case anybody needs to come through or anything." I was like, "Yeah, no problem, whatever." Right, mate. I sat there all day with me sort of umbrella up, just watching them from afar, seeing how everything was getting put up, seeing lights, seeing a big xenon being put on a crane and pushed out. I felt like I was watching a bird's eye view of a set. I wish I could have put a camera up there and just shown this set moving around. It was cool as hell, really, really cool. And I'll say this, dude, I've already mentioned about the VFX guys. They were really cool, but like watching that as well, like they had LiDAR, which was like radar stuff. They had everything on set. There was one point where we had the roof of Michael's house set up, right? Like, of the Havenhurst, like on set. And I went round and looked at the VFX screen, okay? And they had like a big sort of primitive giraffe, right? Ahead of it, which obviously became the giraffe in the thing. And I was like, what's really cool is every single time they're just checking where this thing's going. I was like, it was great to watch, to see that come together. And they were playing with the VFX of like the stadium at one point as well, while we were on set. You were actually watching them going, "Oh yeah, what if we move this here?" Watching those guys work is it's state of the art. It's like being in ILM, I imagine, when they're doing Star Wars
100%.
Yeah, that was really cool. Props as well, mate. I mean, as I said, they remade Havenhurst on a set for the reshoots. We were like Michael's room and all that. That was all on a set. That was so cool, like that bit there. And the same with his thing. I'll tell you this one. This is cool. So the Beat It thing, I already told you about being at the rehearsals for that. Well, that was shot at this like dance studio in Burbank, right? And it was on July the 4th, okay? And I'd been going back and forth. I've been doing a bit of fittings. So we were fitting people who were going to be gang members, okay? But we were told, right, there's going to be real Bloods and Crips on set today. You know what I mean? And we had this guy, Sugar Pop, who was the guy that taught Michael how to street dance. He turned up, right? And he's in the original Thriller, right?
Oh, wow.
Lovely chap, tell you. Like, genuinely nice chap, and they were all like sort of, before we were even shooting, they were sort of doing a little bit of dancing together, you know what I mean? And all sort of like having a bit of a dance, what do they call them, dance battles.
And then did you come out and do your moonwalk?
Mate, I felt like this is what I've trained for. This is watch this, guys.
Everyone just stops, and that's when Graham King comes out.
But mate, on that Beat It video, right? No joke. Like, as a PA, you're not meant to go and look at Video Village, but I couldn't help walking through offering waters to people, like you do, right? And honestly, I'm looking over like Dion Beebe's shoulder, and he's got it on screen, and the flashes and like the zooming in on Michael's feet. And I know some people didn't like that. I know there's some people who have, in their reviews, they've said, "Oh, I wish it had been a wide all the way through and shot that." And I've said that a little bit about a couple of other scenes. But like, some people wanted to see Michael doing the moonwalk from a distance. They didn't like all the cutting and the quick focus and all this kind of stuff. But there was a moment where I was watching it on Video Village, watching these, white socks and the black shoes, and he's like kicking around and stuff like this, and they're just watching it during the Beat It bit, and all these lights are flashing, and it was just so cool. And as I said, Antoine's playing the music, so we've got the good rhythm, we've got it all. Yeah, that was just like, wow, you're making a movie. You know what I mean? You're making like a serious movie here. You know what I mean? And yeah, it was. Did
you get to talk to Dion?
Do you know what? I didn't get to have a proper conversation with him, and I wish I had. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because he is a like one of my heroes for Collateral. Like, I wanted to talk to him about that coyote scene in Collateral, which I absolutely love. Remember
and now he's doing Heat 2. I think that's what he's working on right now.
Yeah, he's doing Heat 2. I wanted to ask him about a scene from Memoirs of a Geisha as well. Like, I had a right bunch lined up. You know what I mean? I was waiting for him to kind of talk to me, because there was one I was on a while ago, Goodrich, right, with Michael Keaton in it, right? And the guy who was DP of that was the same guy who did Knowing with Bill Nighy in it, right? Which was a remake of Hikaru by Kurosawa. Right?
Yeah, what's his name? Ramsey.
That's his name. Ramsey D. I think he's got a D in the middle of his name. Find
Kira
him.
and I got to meet him, or at least his wife, when we were at Camera Mage. That's when he released that movie, and I kept wondering, he was wearing a fucking hat. Him and like his wife, and everywhere. Kira and I were like, "Who is this asshole?" And then we went and realized it was the DP of this movie. But we kept wondering, like, why are these people wearing this hat everywhere we go? And it felt like genuinely, like Kira and I, everywhere we went, he was there with his wife, and they were both wearing hats. And then I think we talked to them in line. Did we? I can't remember. But then I think we realized, and then we happened to be the assholes, actually, is the moral of the story.
He's great. Like, I genuinely enjoyed watching him light on that movie, because there was one scene that's like...
It's a great movie.
It's the Michael Keaton scene where he's got Kevin Pollak saying, "We've just lost this art dealer or whatever, this artist, and we can't stock his art anymore. You know, what are we going to do?" And they're having this moment, and they're in this office, and I was just watching it all these beautiful colors behind him popping while he's sitting in his office chair. And I was like, it's cool watching this guy do it. And I ended up talking to him for a little bit about knowing and about the way they shot it, because it's beautiful. Like, it's showing Britain back in the day. You know what I mean? It's like a really, really beautiful film. And I think, was it shot on film or was it shot digitally, and then they made it look like it was shot
digital. Yeah.
It was beautiful either way, right? So I remember talking to him a little bit about that, and I wanted to do the same with Dion Beebe. I thought there's going to come a point where he's going to ask me for a coffee or something, right? And I'll be able to sort of take it back to him and then be like, "All right, yeah, hey, I loved your work in Memoirs of a Geisha," you know, something like that. Or, "Hey, you know that coyote scene in Collateral?" I was hoping for that, but I never got it.
Yeah, that would have been cool. I mean, he's done some great movies. Even Edge of Tomorrow is probably one of my favorite of his. Like, I feel like I've grown to appreciate that movie more. I mean, he's done a lot of different movies. Of course, his stuff with Michael Mann's probably like his most prolific. Whether it's Miami Vice, Collateral, like you said, is insane. Those two are awesome. It's cool that he did Michael. I'm also really excited for him to do something like Heat 2, because he has had some films that have also not done so well, like Gemini Man. But all I'll say about Gemini Man, I know he wasn't the first to do it with Ang Lee with the whole 120 frames per second, but it would be cool to hear him talk about how it was like shooting 120 frames per second for Gemini Man, even though that movie is like universally panned. I'd be curious about what his process was like shooting that movie in that aspect. It's a very different world, probably, just from a lighting standpoint.
That'd be great, because I haven't seen a lot of interviews that he's not been asked to do a lot of interviews for this yet. I'm not. He
won an Oscar for Collateral, didn't he?
I think so. He definitely won one for Memoirs of a Geisha. That was his like Oscar winner. That's what brought him into my sort of lexicon. But like,
I've never seen that.
Oh, it's great, really cool. I think John Williams soundtrack as well, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what he won.
Yeah, I mean, he was, you know, as I said, just he seemed fascinating. You know what I mean? Like watching him from afar, really did. And as I said,
what was it like working with? Sorry, go for it. No, you go for it.
I was going to say, watching him light that scene, I think, with the recording of young Giuliano, that was the time that I got to kind of watch him work and watch him go, what if I just lift this up here, Antoine? It was like the two tapes, you know, going.
Yeah.
And he was like, what if I just get that there so I can get that in and get that reflection in his face and stuff like this and place Michael in between him? I was like, that's cool. That was cool to watch. Just the way he was looking at how we can bring that and make this bit of the scene a little bit more exciting and stuff, you know. But yeah,
when did they shoot the original like principle for this movie before they went to reshoots? How long were they on break before spooling it back up for the reshoots? Do you know?
I think it was close to a year. It definitely got shut down for a while. You know what I mean? As I said, like all I know is I got brought on for the reshoots, but it was definitely this thing of, you know, like, and what was it, 150 million they spent on it initially, and then they've said that this is 15. Some people have said 50. I don't know how much. I'm a PA mate. I don't know how much things are getting spent on. You know.
Yeah.
But like, they definitely went back to the table to sort of do this. You know, and I imagine if this goes over $1 billion, then they'll probably dive into a second part. But again, that's all up in the gods as well. It's all dependent, I imagine, upon how this is received. Which at the moment,
what would you do if this became a trilogy?
what are they going to do? What's the third part going to be? Is it going to be older Michael trying desperately to get into shape for the tour that he was going to do that didn't actually
What
happen?
could be interesting? What if the second movie is all about leading up to through the allegations, right? We start 1993, goes through his whole life, then he dies. That's where the second movie ends. And then the third movie is all about the making of Michael. So it becomes this really meta dissection of how it's going to tell the story of Michael, but then it goes through all of these like hooks and valleys, but it's all like from the perspective of Jafar. What are your thoughts?
I mean, they should, and then who would play the PA that was talking to everybody?
And then you would be in
everybody?
it. Yeah, you would be in it, Graham King. There would be a really famous moment between you and Graham King that everyone's sitting on the edge of their seat right now, wanting to know more about. I'm just kidding.
He may not have been happy with me one day because I was wearing a Man United shirt. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Here's what I'm going to ask about Graham King. Considering he's
Chelsea
British, did he know that you were British?
Yeah, mate. Anybody who speaks to me knows exactly. If you're British, if you're a British person, right, and you hear my accent, you instantly know where I'm from. Okay, you're like, oh, he's Northern, right? Straight away. Okay, this is like sort of the working class. This is going down the mines, going down the pit. This is the accent, right? Okay. Ridley
What is
Scott
his
has
accent?
A similar accent. What?
What's his accent?
London. He's Cockney. He's East End.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's full on like, oh, talk to you like that, you know. He's like, what is it? Sexy Beast. What's the name? Ben Kingsley.
Ben
Sexy
Kingsley.
Beast. Yeah. Or even Ray Winston. I think he's friends with Ray Winston, actually.
Dude, Ray Winston, what has he been up to these
I
days?
don't know. But yeah, as I said, yeah, I mean, what was the other thing I was going to say? Oh, yeah, what did you think of Joe Jackson? What do you think of the characterization of Joe Jackson, the way he was shot, the way he was portrayed? I love Coleman Domingo. I'm going to say that. Like, he was in a movie last year, 2 years ago. It was the one where... Sing Sing. Absolutely awesome, right? He's brilliant. And I can ship, to speak Generation Z, I can ship Coleman Domingo, right?
Yeah.
But... there were points in this where it's like, you know, Michael closes the fridge door and he's standing there, you know, like it was like this kind of like old school sort of 1920s kind of horror flicks. You know what I mean? A little bit Nosferatu-y. You know, and I thought that was really interesting the way that was portrayed.
No, it's honestly, he's such a character. Not that Joe Jackson wasn't. I do think that like he fulfills the archetype of Joe Jackson. I would not say that Coleman Domingo's performance of Joe Jackson is like a career best acting moment. I think it serves its purpose. It definitely does carry this almost vampiric quality, like you're saying. He almost has this. But what's funny is like the film starts out that way, but as it goes on, Joe Jackson's character, of course, has less of a foothold over Michael. So it kind of becomes comedic every time he wants to do something with Michael, even to the very last sequence with him being with the Victory Tour, where Michael essentially, sorry, spoilers, but shouldn't really be spoilers, but like saying, this is it. And then they have that confrontation in the hallway. It's all very comedic because the whole time it's like his face is just stuck in one type of expression. And like the way Coleman Domingo delivers that performance is very funny because it just seems like a Scooby-Doo like scene. And then I love his bodyguard essentially just has that one line, "It's over, Joe," or whatever the hell he says. You know, it's like all very operatic and it's so funny. And I would say, yeah, not my favorite part of the movie. I think the mom does a better job, and even her character is so one-sided. I mean, none of the characters necessarily have nuance. I think you actually said it best. The one has the most arc in the whole movie is the bodyguard.
Yeah.
You know, like he definitely has the most transformation because he was probably nobody and then all of a sudden was on this ride that is Michael Jackson until where these events end. I'll be curious to see what his character's like in the second one, going into the third one as well. But yeah, I think Joe Jackson was fine. You know?
Yeah. Did you the John Branca role was an interesting one because Miles Teller is obviously massive. Like he's a huge. Like I saw him in Eternity with Elizabeth Olsen. That was the last thing I think I saw him in. But he's been in some like huge films. I mean, if you haven't seen it, War Dogs. Is it War
Yeah.
Dogs with Jonah Hill? He's
Yeah.
awesome in that, right? But shot by Larry Shirt, right?
Yeah.
He's great in that. That's like I was expecting an awful lot more of the John Branca role, knowing that Miles Teller was in it, and it was really subdued and really played off almost Kevin Costner like in some movie. You know what I mean? Like in Superman, like super sort of subdued role. Tries to take on the father figure role when Joe's not behaving in that way. Like it was really weird, that one, because I think that also is a casualty of the cuts that needed to happen legally. I think that his character was cut because you imagine, right? Michael gets arrested, Michael goes to court, Michael gets represented by his lawyer. Boom, 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 boom. All John Branca. The second that we have to have those cuts, boom, John Branca's role becomes like a cameo, you know?
Yeah. Again, one-dimensional character, not fleshed out. Even the brothers probably could have had a larger, like, you know, integration throughout the movie from the Jackson 5 and maybe potential resentment towards Michael or whatever it was. And like, Jermaine, I don't know what. Yeah.
Jermaine is meant to have had that resentment, I believe. I believe Jermaine was meant to be sort of like jealous because he was the eldest brother of the youngster, Michael, becoming this global megastar. You know what I mean? And I thought that would have added so much more nuance to why Jermaine disappears off and we just don't hear about him. Or they say, oh, Jermaine's still not coming back. No, he doesn't want to come back. Okay, no problem. You know, like give me something, Jermaine. But then again, it's like, mate, what was the movie? 2 hours, 7 minutes. There's a story come out. And again, I'll only quote direct sources. I won't quote people who've randomly said something on a podcast, even though the irony isn't lost on me that I'm saying stuff randomly on a podcast, right? But like, apparently, according to Antoine Fuqua in an interview on Variety, he said his first cut was 4 hours long and he chopped it down through world-class editors or something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing, but that was Antoine's quote, right? So getting that down to 2 hours and 7 minutes, we can imagine what's left on the edit room floor that is potentially going to be used in the next part, you know?
Right.
Like maybe the brothers... I don't know. I can't remember it clear enough, but maybe the brothers gave him a weird look when Michael said, this is the end of the Victory Tour and the end of the band and I'm going. Maybe the brothers after that point, if we could have had them looking a little bit more perturbed, I think they might have done. They might have looked a bit perturbed, but then we've got, right, that sets up part 2 where the brothers are like, you know, F you, Michael, for going solo and leaving us all alone. It would add that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that you think, okay, we've got a little bit of chance here for the second part to be a lot darker. I've heard on the grapevine that potentially Dion Beebe won't be involved in the second part if he's shooting Heat 2. And if that's
what
the
about
case,
Antoine?
I don't know. And as I said, that's only a thing I've heard, not even necessarily from official channels. That's something, even though we're not dabbling in hearsay. Like, and if that's the case, it would intrigue me as to who would be the DP for what would potentially be a darker side, a darker period in Michael's life if there was a part 2. You know what I mean? That would be very interesting. Who do you bring in? Who's a darker DP? Gordon Willis.
They just bring in who could be good? Yeah. I don't know.
You know? That's an intriguing one. I'll say this as well. I liked seeing the behind the scenes of Thriller.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I liked seeing
that was shot at the same location that the original one was shot.
Location. The only thing that
were you there for that shooting or no?
No, I believe that was in the first lot of shooting. But shot on the same location. The only thing that I found a little bit like was what we were watching almost like the video remade, not watching the BTS of it. You know what I mean? We were literally watching the video itself, which I was like, it's trippy.
Yeah. No, it was good. I think all of the set pieces were really good. You know, like I think the movie from a craftsmanship level, what's funny is Graham King at what would have been last year's CinemaCon, I'm assuming, said this will be a lengthy feature at more than 2 hours and 30 minutes. And it will include 30 songs from Michael's catalog. So fans can expect pretty much every hit in the movie, which I don't think ultimately became the case for the film at all.
No.
But that's interesting to see that. Also, the trailer got 116 million views within the first 24 hours. That's pretty good.
I think that this is where we're at. The Michael Jackson biopic was always going to happen. It was inevitable, right? We've had Johnny Cash. We've had Bob Dylan. We've had, it was inevitable. This was the next one along the tracks. You know what I mean? And it feels like it's come around just at that moment. You know what I mean? That he's still absolutely insanely relevant. You know what I mean? Like when you look at the Beatles coming next year, I'm sure that'll be a big 4 movies like we've talked about before, releasing on the same day. Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know how that's going to work, right? But that's obviously going to be a huge thing. You know what I mean? I'm trying to figure out, if you did a Bee Gees movie, a Bee Gees biopic, I don't think that would be anywhere near as big as this. And the Bee Gees were big.
No.
But do you think people are going to show out for the Bee Gees like they are doing for this? You know what I mean?
That's what I'm curious with the Beatles too. It's 4 movies on top of that, right?
Do you think people will be queued up for the cinema for that? Like they will be for Odyssey and like they have been for this? I'm genuinely asking.
Yeah, I don't know. I think considering the pedigree behind the movie being Sam Mendes, we have Greg Fraser, the actors, likely the marketing that will go into this. If I were to be quite frank, I'm probably more excited about this. I tend to like Sam Mendes a bit more than Antoine Fuqua. That's not to diminish him as a director, but I just like Sam Mendes' directorial style more. So I have a feeling that considering how this Beatles film is broken up over 4 movies, carrying different perspectives, maybe during the same time, telling the same story, I'm not sure. I think that Sam Mendes will likely have a bit more of a prestigious take on the Beatles, being more craftsmanship, maybe showing a more nuanced perspective of something that has not traditionally been seen for the Beatles. So I don't think it's going to hit quite the box office as Michael. We'll see. It really could, though. It really could, just because Sam Mendes, I mean, he's had some pretty major box office success with his Bond films and stuff. So I'd be curious. I'm not sure. But Michael, he has that built-in audience. Like you said, I think more people are going to show up in costume, dancing and doing all of that stuff in theater for Michael than that will be the case for, I don't think for Ringo's movie, there's going to be a bunch of Ringos hanging out in the theater.
People in weird wigs.
Yeah.
Here's something I'll say, right, is we are always talking about what's going to save cinema, what's going to get bums in seats. I think when we talked about Project Hail Mary, the one thing that we absolutely loved about Project Hail Mary was that when we were seeing it, it was packed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was going to a cinema and watching it was packed. I went and saw the drama. It was packed. Now, don't get me wrong. I live in Los Angeles. I'm not convincing myself. I'm not kidding myself, should I say, that there's not people in, Kentucky or wherever filling cinemas out for, on the night that it comes out or 2 nights after it comes out or whatever. I know that LA people, they're a film crowd. But it is really good to see a movie, even if it's about a controversial person like this, right? And even if it is, something that many people find divisive as subject matter, it's amazing to see people filling theaters. Yeah. It's amazing to see full theaters. And I'll say this, for a music concert film, which this is, where you're watching whole performances of songs, right? It's pretty cool to watch that with an audience. It's made me think again about going and seeing the Billie Eilish, James Cameron, whatever it's In Too Deep or whatever it's called. I'm excited about that because it's a whole different element to something. It's not just going and seeing the story. You're going to see it to see music performed in this sort of really cool way. You know what I mean? And yeah, the shot that really pulled me into this movie was the one with when they're doing Human Nature and he's on stage in those ludicrous white and black pants that nobody in the world could pull off, right? Except Michael Jackson, okay? and he puts his hand up in the air. And I know it was a cheesy trait, but there's a moment where he just holds, and you kind of like, like waiting around in silence for like a minute and a half. And it's like they went in the edit suite, they were just sitting there going, how long can we keep this moment of silence going? You know what I mean? And then he goes, oh, tell me why, or whatever the song is, right? And that, by the way, my album will be coming out next year, right? But, right? When he goes into it, like, everybody just kind of released breath, really. You know what I mean? It was quite a moment. And I was like, yeah, that's a real cool moment in a film, that. You know what I mean? Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it hasn't been done before. I'm not saying it hasn't, we don't have that kind of thing. But yeah, it was quite a cool moment. It made me think this is probably what a Michael Jackson concert was like, or at that time. And that's cool. Yeah, and as I said, it made me rethink this Billie Eilish, James Cameron thing. I'll probably go and see that, and just to kind of experience.
100%.
Looks cool.
The behind the scenes from that sound insane, shooting that in 3D. And it's James Cameron. And it's him again showing that he thinks outside of the box. And just because he's doing Avatar and have done all of these major films doesn't mean that he couldn't come in to try to reinvent what a concert film could be for viewers in a movie theater. I'm not the biggest Billie Eilish fan. I appreciate her work. And again, I think she's a great talent. But I'm very much interested in, between her and James Cameron, how they can collaborate to do something that's unique and maybe never experienced before. So that's going to mean I'll show up for that 100%. And I think it's going to be awesome. So yeah, I think that Michael serves its purpose for those that are Michael Jackson fans and want to be able to have that experience, especially to your point. If you were not able to experience Michael Jackson in person, I think this is likely closest to what some people can get to get that energy of a large sound system playing Michael Jackson, playing his best hits, seeing a glimpse into what his life was potentially like, having some unique decisions throughout it. Is it going to be the film that maybe some of us and the critics would have hoped for? No, and I don't think it was even ever going to be that, even in its original writing. No. I don't think at any point it was ever going to be something that was going to be so nuanced to maybe even slander Michael's name. It was never going to be that, considering those that were involved in the family and the estate. I do think that this is a product that is mainly meant to serve his fans, not some deeper look into his life. And that's why we have these documentaries like Finding Neverland or whatever it was called, to be able to look at some of those more, personal aspects of his life. And listen, that doesn't mean that there couldn't be a film that alternatively does that and maybe shows a segment of his life, but not through the eyes of Michael Jackson, And we really do have to see what the second film holds. I think that's where, if let's just say that the second film goes into all of those rabbit holes and pulls back the proverbial onion, then that's kind of a cool way of looking at his life, where here's pre the allegations and here's post the allegations. It has this more kind of black and white look towards his life, or at least we see into the gray areas potentially. Who knows? So I think all in all, it was a fun movie. I don't have the relation that you do, having worked on the film. And I think that it's still worth seeing, as any movie is. And for those that don't want to spend their money on it, I mean, that's the whole purpose of capitalism and commerce. You don't have to,
I mean, what I like working on it the most was it fills my story bank up. You know what I mean? It gives me stories. And as a film buff, you're working with people who you can talk to about their films that they worked on in the past that are really cool. You know what I mean? Like I said, like the UPM on this was David Householder. He did Elf. Now, he did loads of amazing movies, right? So Elf is probably the one I just pulled out my head, right? I mean, but like, it was cool to ask him questions about Favreau, you know what I mean, on that. And like, he told me a really cool story. Let me tell this one very quickly. He was telling me that he got offered a movie back in his early days for he said they've got this movie that's going to be directed by this guy Steven Spielberg, right? Now, cleanse your mind of how amazing Spielberg is and just think, right? He did a great movie in the late 70s, early 80s. He did Duel, right, which was pretty good. Right, I'm just saying if you're somebody else, right? And then he's done Jaws. He's done Sugarland Express. He's done a few others, right? Yeah, okay, right. And you get told, right, there's a Steven Spielberg film, and it's about dinosaurs, right? And he goes, "Who's Steven Spielberg? Let me check." Right? Oh, he's the guy that did Hook, which he said was a right pile of shite. Right? So he said, I turned it down. He said, the next thing I know, this Spielberg dinosaur movie comes out. It's the biggest movie of all time. Right? Sparks a franchise the world over, theme park rides, everything. Right?
Crazy.
And I'll say this, even Hook was pretty damn good. Like, it was a great movie. I loved Hook. You know what I mean? I genuinely did. And again, a John Williams soundtrack, which we should have covered last week, which I didn't. But yeah, like those stories. I mean, the crafty guy was telling me stories about working on Goodfellas.
Which
Oh no, it wasn't.
Insane.
I'm wrong. He worked on Blow, which was the movie with Ray Liotta and Johnny Depp. Have you ever seen Blow?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Mate, that is a great movie. George Jung. He'll be released now. He'll be out.
That's insane. I mean, that's the cool part is you get to work with people who've done different things, you know? It's like that's the best part of filmmaking, and I'm glad that you got to have that experience and be able to connect with these people, which I know have gone on to be friends, and who knows, maybe you'll be involved in Michael too. Maybe you'll be involved in other productions that you get to work with these people as well. So have you ever seen the Steven Spielberg movie Always?
No.
So this was before Hook. It has Richard Dreyfuss in it, Holly Hunter, John Goodman. This was another film that has a super low rating, a 6.4 out of 10 and a 50 out of 100. Never heard of it. Was just curious.
Right, it's a great. As I said, there's like you said it last week when. Oh, was it the week? No, last week when I showed you a clip from Robin Hood, Errol Flynn.
Yeah.
Right, and you were like, "Mate, how many movies are there?" And I was like, "Yeah, too many to watch in a lifetime.
Too many to watch.
Too many." Right, there's too much stuff because it's like as well, like the Antoine Fuqua thing. I was researching him because I was like, right, I just want to get this thing out that's like the Instagram thing, and I started looking into all of his old movies, and it's like there's a load of them online. Like you can find a load of them on like Tubi or a load of them on the what's it called app, Peacock. Right, there's a load of them.
Yeah,
they're all
Peacock.
over the place. Right, and I was just like kind of watching all these movies, like Olympus Has Fallen, ones that I'd not seen in ages. You know what I mean? And it's like, yeah, it's really cool. There's so many out there, and I think that I'll say this: I think that Antoine Fuqua did a damn good job on this movie. I think that this is a guy that shot the music videos for Coolio's Gangster's Paradise, right? Prince, Most Beautiful Girl in the World. Like he shot some really cool music videos, and you could sense that this guy that has this kind of musical rhythm to the way he puts together scenes and puts together bits of story and stuff like that. You could see that in the edit that we watched, in the film that we've seen. You know what I mean? There was some really cool musical moments, musical montages, moments where it felt like we were seeing the music of Michael's life. You know what I mean? All starting to come together and then start to form things. The bit when was it the Beat It one when he kept looking up at the words on the wall, and then he's looking back down and he's starting to sort of like scratch things and stuff like this, and then you're starting to feel the song come together. It's a really cool moment in any film, whether it's the Michael Jackson biopic or whether it's anything. Like watching that come together was a really cool idea, and I enjoyed those Fuquaisms, as I call it, because if you watch things like Equalizer 3 is cool, right? It's a really cool movie, and there's moments like that. The opening of Equalizer 3 where he's sitting there with the light behind him and he's in that basement, and you move through that castle and there's like a smashed mirror with blood on it, and there's all these bodies on the floor, and you're seeing the scene from backwards, almost Memento like. Such a cool scene. Antoine Fuqua is a really cool
I've
director.
never watched Equalizer.
It's brilliant. Well,
any of them.
Listen, the final scene from Equalizer 1 is awesome when they're in this hardware store. Not going to kill anything for it, right? But it's a really cool scene, right? In Equalizer 2, they have like a fight that's on top of like a tower, right? And I didn't enjoy it as much. But Equalizer 3 I loved, and it's all set in this little Italian town. And Denzel, like,
isn't it like a John Wick movie?
Yeah, it's that kind of thing. It's a guy who was got a checkered past, much like Michael. He's got a checkered past, and like, but he's a he's now working as like a bloke in a Home Depot store. That's Equalizer.
Right.
And then he starts to see people who've had bad things done to him or whatever, and he, equalizes it. He makes things right. And it's Denzel Washington. You know what I mean? Like, you've got a guy who is probably one of the coolest, one of the most one of the best Shakespeare actors of our day. I mean, he was great in Macbeth, and he's done Othello just recently on Broadway. He's incredible doing action movies. I mean, here's a cool one about Antoine Fuqua. Apparently, he took on King Arthur for Disney and for Jerry Bruckheimer at the same time that he was offered Man on Fire, right? Which eventually went to Tony Scott, right? And he turned it down. It's always been one of those what ifs in his life. I think that's true. I'm fairly certain that's true, all right? And it's one of those where I think, if you've not seen King Arthur's a great film. However, only if you watch the director's cut, because Antoine wrote and directed this incredible, like, gritty, medieval battles, bloodshed, all of these different guys coming together, a little bit like Magnificent Seven. They've all got their own sort of traits. They're all like, some are Celts, some are barbarians. They all come together. Johan Grufford plays Lancelot. He's a hardcore like rider or something, right? And they all have their own things. One guy's got an axe or like a thing, right? They're cool as hell, right? And he directed this like awesome sort of like what's that one that I like? That's the Yorma Tamilia one. You know, the one that's Sisu. It's like Sisu, but set in medieval England, right? They built a 3-mile-long Hadrian's Wall in Ireland. It was one of the most expensive sets ever made. It was Jerry Bruckheimer film, and then most of the way through filming, or it might have been through the edit, Disney came in and said, we want this to be rated PG-13, so you're going to have to cut a load of that bloodshed, a load of that gore, a load of that grittiness. And it ended up being like quite a timid movie, right? And it's such a shame because, as I said, like, if you watch the director's cut, that's great. And even Antoine says, and has said in interviews, it's not how he wanted it. Like, he wanted it to be grittier, bloodier. He wanted it to be medieval on their A. dots. You know what I mean? Like, and it didn't. He didn't get the chance to do that. And also the fact that he could have done Man on Fire, which is all about shoving bombs up people's backsides. It's like, such a shame.
So what are your thoughts with that? Knowing, I mean, looking at what he has coming up, it looks like he's in development for a Hannibal movie. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, it's a not medieval, pre-medieval, ancient action, movie about Africa's greatest ever general. I studied it when I was at university. I actually spoke to Antoine about it on set because I'm a big fan of it. But of Hannibal, I've studied it when I was at university and stuff. It's an amazing story. Like, literally, it's such a shame that it's lesser known, right? But it will be told. Like, Hannibal was this African general from the north of Africa, pretty much Tunisia, Morocco way, and he marched an army all the way across, up Spain, over Spain and through France into northern Italy, and attacked Rome, who were one of the like superpowers of the Mediterranean, or were well on the way to becoming a superpower of the Mediterranean, and attacked Rome, or was attacking the Romans. He was reaching Rome, right? Like, amazing story. We're going to have, Denzel potentially, what has been reported in newspapers, you know what I mean, as this sort of ancient commander. It's cool as hell. You know what I mean? And yeah, I'm excited to see what Antoine and Denzel come up with. Even though people have complained and said, oh, well, Hannibal would have been in his 30s and Denzel's, in his late 60s. I don't care. You know what I mean? I want to see these two, one of the greatest director-actor partnerships in Hollywood and in Hollywood history, making cool things together. Because Training Day was awesome. There's stories out there. There's been a podcast out there where Antoine has said, a lot of it was Denzel improvising, and he was like throwing lines in, King Kong ain't got shit on me. Like, mate, let Denzel cook, let Antoine cook with him, let them go to Italy and make this amazing movie. And I can't wait because it's apparently from the reports, John Logan's written the script. Like, dude, that's going to be awesome. You know what I mean? Like, We're going back to gladiator times. We're going back to that kind of stuff. Like, that's going to be mega. Swords and Sandals epic. Don't get me wrong. We're getting the biggest Swords and Sandals epic of all time this summer with Christopher Nolan's Odyssey. And I don't care who you are. That's going to be awesome. There's no way it's not going to be great.
Do you want to hear something crazy?
Hit me with
which
it.
I think you'll respect this. Vin Diesel has had a rival project welling in development for over 15 years. Diesel intended upon directing and starring as Hannibal. However, the success of Fast and the Furious franchise meant that at the time he had to push his dream project to fruition, kept getting pushed back. It now appears as though he's missed his window of opportunity, of course. But I mean, maybe not, of course, but imagine a world in which a project, which I know you care about deeply, would have been directed and acted by Vin Diesel. What are your thoughts?
Do you know what, mate? Honestly, I've heard him talk about it and how much he loves Hannibal. I've also heard Antoine talk about how much he loves Hannibal. Like, Antoine doesn't mess around, like on King Arthur. Yeah. Antoine researched the hell out of Roman Britain, because King Arthur wasn't a Roman Britain, or wasn't meant to be, and then he became this Arturius, Clive Owen's Arturius, right? And it was awesome. Like, like I said, he was up on Hadrian's Wall. They were doing all this kind of stuff. So Antoine studies the hell out of his subjects when he's doing it, which is cool, and he insists that everybody knows it. Like, I mean, it's like you are getting an education when you're Antoine Fuqua stuff. So, like, that's cool. But yeah, I mean, Vin Diesel, mate, if he knows the story, if you've got, like, he must be worth a hell of a lot. He must have an awful lot of clout. If he wants to make something separate, do it. You know what I mean? Because as we're seeing now with this project, this Michael project, there's people who are saying, "Oh, I would have done this different. I would have done that." Right, go on then. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong; they won't get the music from the estate, so they'll have to do some crazy sort of what was it? Priscilla on Elvis, right? That one with the Priscilla story, where they had to sort of very carefully massage tunes so that they didn't sound too close to Elvis tunes and everything, because they didn't get the rights. They'd have to do that, but I'd go and watch that movie still. You know what I mean? Like, tell your own story. If you don't like the stories that are being told, go and tell your own. And that Vin Diesel, as I said, I haven't seen him in anything recently besides Fast and Furious, and he's probably trying to get Fast and Furious, what is it, 10, 11 coming out?
The last 11, one.
Right? They're trying to do that. Well, after that, he's going to have a bit of time in his hands. I will say this, like, I've seen him a lot with, like, Michael Caine. He's made friends with Michael Caine. You know what I mean? He seems like a fairly stand-up guy, Vin Diesel, in that respect. But I mean, maybe Vin Diesel's got his contacts. Maybe he can get in contact with Antoine and say, look, we both want to make this Mother. We both want to be involved in it. We both want to do this. Let's pool our resources, Let's make something that is going to be monumental for this African commander. You know what I mean? This guy, Hannibal, whose story's really not been told. It's in all of, mate, opera. There's a Hannibal opera. I think there's a Hannibal ballet. I think there's an awful lot about Hannibal out there. There's tons of novels.
Has there been any movie or TV shows?
Never. I mean, I think it was on BBC. I think the BBC had like a BBC straight to film version, which was actually narrated by historians and stuff. But that's as much as we've had. Yeah, there might have been some straight to TV stuff, but there's been nothing that's been grandiose enough. And I think that, if Antoine's going to take that on, I'm excited for it. Because people will ask, oh, is he capable of doing these massive sort of war epics, Braveheart style, whatever? And I'm like, well, the guy just directed 500 people in stadiums constantly, not just one, like multiple stadiums for Michael. You know what I mean? Like, although that shot out on New York Street looks a little bit artificial in terms of crowd size, right? The ones that are in the stadiums and stuff like that, where it's shooting him slightly from above looking out, you're at least getting 500 people in there. You know what I mean? It'll be really cool to see what Antoine Fuqua does with battle scenes, like, genuinely. And if you haven't seen it, he did Magnificent Seven. He did a remake, right? And it's been it seems to have been passed over. That's a great, great film. I loved it. You know what I mean? And in the same, like, Ethan Hawke in it, as I can't remember his name now, Longshot or something, I can't remember. He had sort of Silas Dogood, some crazy name like that, right? It's not that. That's from 12 Years a Slave, right? And then he did this one called Emancipation, which got absolutely buried because of the Will Smith slap, sadly. But that's with Will Smith was in it, right? And that is harrowing. That is, like, incredible. It's a great movie. you know. And so, as I said, he's building up to something. He's cooking, and I don't think he cares about like critic scores or anything like this. I think it would bother him probably this stuff that's coming out about Antoine and all that kind of stuff, because like, as I said, it wasn't true what I saw on set. He was always on set. He was always there, like he was. I mean, I can't lie about it. He passed me every day because I'm stood in the door, opening the door for him and closing the door for him and stuff. I talked to him about Hannibal because he passed me on the way in. You know what I mean? Like he was on set and he was directing every day. That's the fact. And I think that unfortunately, and you probably know this as well as most, you know what I mean? When you get these monumental movies come out, for some reason, people who don't want it to succeed, and that's totally fine if people don't want it to succeed because of who the allegations against Michael and everything like that. You get these stories that come out that almost self-sabotage the whole movie. Same thing happened, like, you know, if you go way back, you look at the Christian Bale rant, it completely undermined what was a pretty good movie in terms of Terminator Salvation. And then if you watch these things as well, they tried to do the same when Tom Cruise was doing Mission Impossible, and they let out this sort of rant that was on set or whatever of Tom Cruise during COVID, and they tried to undermine the whole point in the movie. You know what I mean? The movie's whole marketing. I'll say this, the marketing for Michael's been absolutely mesmerizing. When they've had these record players going, they've had people moving back and forth and all this. I wish I'd been involved in it, to be honest. All I was doing was texting my mate and going, oh, yeah, you should give everybody sequin gloves. Or, you know, like, you should give them all fedoras. You know, like, but yeah, it's been great. Like, the way that they've marketed this movie, it's been everywhere. You can't miss it. They must have spent absolutely tens of millions of dollars on this, you know? Did you
get your hat popcorn bucket?
I didn't. You know what? I don't do popcorn buckets anyway. You see them; they're elaborate as hell. You don't see them at the AMC though, do you? You know what I mean?
No,
they're
it's
all like Regal.
The hat wouldn't even have made sense for this movie because it wasn't even in the movie.
No, he don't wear the hat until Moonwalker. Did you ever see the movie Moonwalker?
No.
Oh, Sweens, you gotta watch the movie Moonwalker, right? Just purely because it's batshit insane, right? It's like a collection of Michael Jackson music videos all put together, right? So it's what people are accusing this of being, which is totally wrong. But like, it is like this very threaded story of Joe Pesci. I shit you not, this is true, by the way. And like, I've got friends who, when I was working on Michael, I was telling about Moonwalker because it was one that I got from the video shop weekly, right? Joe Pesci plays the bad guy, and he's like this guy who loves spiders, right? Loves spiders, okay? And he's got like this weird ponytail that goes upwards like he's in some kind of cartoon, and he's got these weird beady black glasses, right? Genuinely, this is true. I'm not making this up. I haven't just done an acid trip or something, right? But give that a watch, all right? Like, Joe Pesci's a bad guy, and he's trying to sort of kidnap these kids, and Michael becomes a spaceship, and all kinds of weird stuff happens, and it's in that one. Honestly, like, as I said, it sounds like I've just taken some crazy drugs, but that's genuinely true what happens in that movie. It's about 90 minutes long, and I remember watching that when I was about 7 years old, thinking, there he is. Look at his little haircut. Michael turns into a car at one point. All right, look, this is another. Yeah, there's claymation in it. This is Speed Demon, right? Look, there's one when he's dancing with like a rabbit. That's a claymation rabbit. I saw
some of that,
mate. Utterly bizarre, right? Yeah, they have the whole bad video that Scorsese shot. Yeah, this is crazy. The claymation rabbit right here, and it's shot. There's a moment where it's shot on Warner Brothers, right? Here's the wild one. You actually see Bill Bray, who's been used in it, like in a cameo, right? Yeah, absolute mad. There he is. Joe Pesci loses it. He has like some kind of laser beam. You know what I mean? Now, hey, if anybody's calling the Michael movie very sort of like, you know, cookie cutter in terms of biopics, go and watch Moonwalker, all right? You won't be able to predict what's going to happen in the next 35 seconds, okay? It goes to some places. Yeah, this is when they do the lean.
Yeah.
Smooth Criminal lean.
This is what they should have just released in theaters.
Mate, utterly bonkers. I remember watching
the making of Moonwalker. That's what Michael should have been. The whole campaign should have been, you're going to watch this like really awesome from cradle to grave, nuanced movie. Everyone goes to sit down, but it's really just the making of Moonwalker.
Yeah, Joe Pesci wandering around going, "Why am I doing this? I've just done Home
Yeah.
Alone. I shouldn't have taken on another bad guy role this quickly."
It should have been formatted like the Steve Jobs, Aaron Sorkin film, where like each setup's like a really pivotal moment and it's all behind the scenes. I think that could have been what Michael really was.
What was your favorite? Here's a question, and it's nothing to do with Michael, right? So those people who are boycotting this because we've been because we're talking about Michael, right? Steve Jobs biopic. What was your favorite scene in that? Because mine was when he asked her to get him a white shirt. Remember that bit?
Were you talking about the Michael Fassbender?
Yeah, Fassbender, and it's written by Sorkin.
That's probably one of the best biopics because it's barely a biopic and it shows Steve Jobs at very significant moments, but there's like a also the pacing in that movie is just exceptional. But it's less about like Steve Jobs, where he came from and who he is. We're seeing this man and what it's like seeing someone like him operate under pressure literally moments before going live on something. And sure, there's some backstory elements, there's some personal elements, but you also get to see Steve Jobs for what he is great at and also for what he was worst at. And that was being a father figure and having that connective tissue. And it's just, that's probably Sorkin at his best. I'm not excited for this new the social reckoning or whatever the hell he's working on right now.
Really?
I'm not excited for it personally.
I've heard that Jeremy Strong is unbelievable.
Well, and here's the thing.
From a few
I'm not going to say I want to be wrong. I also really want to be wrong. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to watch it. It's just not something that I think that we need out of all of the movies that could potentially be made right now. But that's also the beauty of filmmaking. But yeah.
Let me take you back, Sweeney, one sec, right? You know how you said about the Steve Jobs thing and how it was leading up to this significant moment in his life or significant moments in his career, right? That's a biopic trait that is that is a biopic trait that is now starting to slide into purview and becoming the thing. Like the Bob Dylan one, Complete Unknown, was about that moment when he was, who was it? Pete Seeger, whatever the name is, Ed Norton's character. It was leading up to the moment where he played Electric for the first time at that folk festival. Remember? Right? And the Deliver Me From Nowhere, Bruce Springsteen one, which got absolutely panned, which is a shame because it wasn't awful, but it wasn't the most exciting movie in the world. That was all about his worst rated album, Nebraska, and him writing this thing that he just needed to get out there because like he was struggling in life and this was just something he needed to do for himself, which I thought was good. I thought that was a great like twist on the whole biopic narrative. Almost antibiotic, should I say, not antibiotic. In the same way, Man on the Moon, we talked about that, and that was cradle to grave. You know what I mean? Like, would you have preferred the Michael biopic to have been right? We're leading up to the Bad tour, and we're going to use that as the, Michael has to look back on his whole life before he plays on stage at Bad tour, which is pretty much what it is, but. Or would you prefer it? Do you get what I'm trying to say? Would you have preferred it? It was he's recording this album, the Bad album or whatever. You know what I mean? Because I'll be honest, working on it, and as I said, I only worked on the reshoots. I felt like it was going to be about Off the Wall. I felt that was the album. That's what it was going to be focused on, and everything else was kind of subsidiary. But this is it. It's him releasing his first solo album, and we went way beyond like that. That was gone in 40 minutes, and now we're into like the second half of the film almost. You know what I mean? Like, what would you have preferred?
I don't know. I don't know if I know enough about Michael to what lens would have been best for the movie. I think that their attempt was fine. Maybe it could have been leading up to the eve of like each album's launch or maybe the big tours that he wanted to do. I think that they could have particularly spent more in the making of the music videos and the short film like music videos that he did. And maybe that's where the film should have lived a little bit longer, is like, seeing his process creatively. What's funny, it's for a film that really is about him. Sure, you see like him singing, but you don't really see the creative process and everything that he goes through. There's moments of that, and there's some really great moments, but there's not a collective moment where you're like, oh, this is Michael. So I don't know what it would have made, like what would have made sense. What was so good about Steve Jobs in like the Aaron Sorkin film was that you knew how big these keynote moments were for Steve Jobs and rolling out these products and the pressure of what it is to not only be this creative that he was, but he was also this spokesperson for technology and pushing the needle. And you know, they talk about that he was the conductor. He was not the coder. He was not the developer. He was not the hardware engineer. He honestly didn't really know how to do a lot of those things, but he was the person there that had the taste to put it all together. And that's what you saw. It's like where Steve Jobs was most effective was in fourth quarter. You're fucking 10 yards from 10 yards from goal, and he's ready to launch something that the world is potentially waiting for. And you saw that percolator moment in those movies, you know, and you saw that even up until his death with the launch of the iPhone and these major keynotes. He was always this presenter. Yeah. And Michael Jackson was this stage person as well, and a presenter in a kind of different type of way, a bit larger than life, which everyone knew Michael Jackson. I don't know what would have been the best way to capture him. You know, when you look at movies like Jackie, which is told from a very unique perspective of how that movie could have been, or Spencer. Yeah, I think someone that knows Michael Jackson maybe could speak to that a little better. I think the question would really come from you. How would you have you done it?
You threw me off then when you mentioned Spencer, which I'll come back to because I'm not a big Pablo Larraín fan. But we'll talk about that in a sec because I think he made up for it with El Conde. Yeah, I think there was a part of me that wondered, like I said, what would it be like if we just focused on one album? You know what I mean? And we literally focused on him writing this album and every single track on it. Oh, shit, sorry. Every single track on it or anything like that. And then looking off and seeing how he was when he was younger and stuff. I mean, but as it is, we looked at it, his life almost chronologically. You know what I mean? And I think with that having been said, that leads us into like what will be the second part of his life. They've already told us that there's going to be one. I mean, imagine finishing a film by saying Michael's story will continue or his story will continue or whatever it is. That literally is James Bond at the end. Somebody put 007 in the comments here. Yeah, it had a Bond ending. James Bond will return in. They even used I think they used a James Bond will return at the end of No Time to Die where James Bond died. Spoiler alert, right? But like... So, like, yeah, they threw that in. So, therefore, there's obviously going to be a second one. And, you know, or there's very likely going to be a second one if they've put that at the end of this one. You know what I mean? Which, fair play. Right. Bet on yourself. You know what I mean? Not like using a Polymarket or a Calcia or any of that kind of stuff. But, like, you know, mate, I thought it was a pretty good film. You know what I mean? I did. Yeah. I thought you could see a lot of technique on show. You could see that it had been well directed. You know, I thought that the soundtrack didn't get in the way. It felt very stripped down. We got literally chords from Michael's songs. I think there was one. What was it? I can't remember, but they put chords in from one of his tracks, and literally the only thing you heard was like a guitar on its own. It was so stripped down, there was nothing there. You know what I mean? And it was like, that's what I was kind of seeing with Michael. It was him stripped down. I mean, like, the moment with the twister is interesting as well. He arrives home with this twister under his arm, and his brothers don't want to play with him anymore. Like, you're sowing seeds there. You know what I mean? For what will hopefully be something in the future where we're seeing, yeah, he was just isolated. He was very, very, very isolated, you know? Perhaps that's it. You know, perhaps that's them sowing seeds. I don't know. Like, I've always thought as a screenwriter, you show everything. You show your whole hand. You know what I mean? You don't want to just sow seeds in case there's a second one. You want to get it all out there in the first part. And like you said, we could even end up having multiple films, not 2, but 3 more. Who knows? You know what I mean? Who knows where they're going to do this? Yeah. I mean, I'm intrigued to see it being released all over the world as well. Like, we saw it being released in Berlin and there was people dancing in the aisles and going crazy. We saw in China there's people being given lights and they're doing like it's like being at a show. You know, we're seeing in America, you're getting every person who wants to show off the high kicks that they've been desperate to show off is now waiting for the credits and doing, you know, every Michael Jackson move they possibly can. You know what I mean? Like, we're seeing that now. So it's like, that's that's what this film is doing. Let's see what happens as this starts to get out. Will it be another chicken jockey? Will it be like, you remember when that was a thing?
Yeah.
Kids were all waiting for the moment with chicken jockey and then just launching everything known to man into the sky.
Yeah.
Remember that fine bit of cinema?
What do you think that? Will the dancing continue in Michael 2? Do you think?
Yeah, I mean, look at the era that we're going to go through next. Dangerous. Like, dude, this was the wild thing, right? When you look back at the people that worked with Michael, like in Michael Jackson, like on his music videos, like they said it in the film, they were art. Like, Dangerous had Eddie Murphy in it, it had Grace Jones in it, and they were all in ancient Egypt. And Michael throws some dust over himself and disappears into the ground, right? I was then expecting, I'll be honest, when I watched that the first time, I was then expecting the Thriller, right, with mummies, but it didn't happen. Crying shame. I was expecting like some proper mummy dance, then I was like, I'm in. Remember the time? That was the movie. That was the music video. Yeah, and Martin Scorsese, as I said before, he directed Bad. Like, you have, and John Landis did Thriller. Like, you're talking like he went elite with his directors.
Yeah, I wonder how much the budgets were for those. That's crazy.
I think he was paying for himself. If what the Michael movie tells you, he was paying for himself. Anyway, also coming to cinemas, just as we're wrapping this one up, also coming to cinemas, which I think is going to be an interesting one. Desert Warrior with Anthony Mackie. That looks
You keep
cool.
hyping this movie up.
You've seen the trailer for it? It looks awesome.
I do not think it looks good. I love you. I'm going to pull it up. There's just something about it. You've been hyping this up on Instagram.
Show the trailer.
And I'm literally like, is Chris getting paid by someone? Like,
I saw this, right, when it was in cinemas.
It has a 1.9 out of 10.
Hey, ignore the haters. Okay?
I
Sir Ben
actually have never...
Kingsley.
A 1.9 out of 10, Chris. It's...
What's it? Shalto Copley. He's in it.
He's
the guy
good.
Who's from 300.
He's good.
Yeah, mate, there's some great names in it. And I'm not going to write it off as a 1.9. If you've ever seen, what was it called? The Command with Fassbender in it, that was all about like ancient Rome. Okay. That got really low ratings as well, but that's great. The Eagle.
Did it get a 1.9 low? 1.9 though.
Still gonna go, mate. I'm still gonna go. Like I said, I don't believe that. This looked good, mate. You should see the trailer. Right, as I said,
I watched the trailer.
Look at this. Elephants come out of nowhere. This is Hannibal-esque, may I just say.
What is this even
elephants
about?
Over the mountains.
Is this like a real story?
I don't think so. Looks great.
I don't know if I believe Anthony Mackie just getting it down in the middle of the desert and fucking people up.
Do you know what? I said this before, right? Anthony Mackie, if you look at the movies that aren't Marvel, right? He's good in the Marvel movies, don't get me wrong. But if you look at the other movies, like We Are Marshall, obviously we got to know it quite well because it was a Shane movie. He's great in We Are Marshall. Like some of the movies that Anthony Mackie's been in, he's been awesome. Like he genuinely, I've not seen a bad performance from the guy. He's great. High praise for the guy. Look at it. We Are Marshall. Tell me one of those that you don't... You're already... I can tell by your tone. I can tell by your tone.
Gangster Squad. Abraham Lincoln.
Vampire Hunter. Not Lincoln.
Real Steel.
The Spielberg one. Real
Steel.
Steel.
In this movie.
Mate, Real Steel, right? And I know people like to shit on, what's his name? Sean Levy.
Hugh Jackman?
Right? No, Sean Levy. No, Hugh Jackman's great. Hugh Jackman, another one who doesn't put in a bad performance on anything. If you've not seen it yet, Song Sung Blue, he's brilliant in. He's awesome. And it deserved a lot more recognition than it got. But Real Steel, right? It's a Sean Levy film, the guy who did Deadpool and everything. People love to kind of shit on Sean Levy for some reason. They like to kind of...
Oh, you love this dude.
I genuinely think Real Steel, it got me, mate. It got me to tears. Got me tears at the end, right? That's why I won't badmouth him. And he also
aren't you excited? You're excited for Starfighter, aren't you? Isn't this Ryan Gosling?
Mate, did you not hear the story from set? Tom Cruise flies in on his helicopter, grabs the camera and goes, "I got this, bitches," and then he goes and films. He didn't say that. That was a misquote.
For what?
Right? Starfighter. He flew. Ryan Gosling tells the story that Cruise flew in on his helicopter, lands on set, gets the camera, and shoots a scene.
And then leaves?
Then he just gets back in his helicopter and he's like, "I'm off to shoot Mission Impossible 45. See you later."
So why was he doing that? What was his
deal? I don't
deal?
know, man. But you know what? If you're Tom Cruise and you can fly helicopters, you'd land on every set. I'm amazed that he didn't do a cameo on Michael. Know what I mean? I'm amazed he wasn't in Jumanji 3. Just flew in, did everything that all the people in Jumanji 3 needed to do to save the universe, and then just takes off again. And they're just like, why do we even bother? Tom Cruise is the guy.
Who's this Terrence Malick ass looking human right here?
I don't know. He's got a new one coming out soon, hasn't he? We were talking about that the other day. There's a Terrence Malick coming out. Dave Filoni. It's Dave Filoni. It's the guy who does most of the Star Wars stuff.
Oh. See, I'm not I feel like everyone on the film hang is going to hate me by the end of this series because I just don't like anything.
It's because you don't have this. You don't have this injection into the mainstream. You like your sort of like off mainstream. You like to go out into the suburbs and find these sort of quaint little ditties. You know what I mean? Which I like. You go and see the Christophers, and I haven't seen it yet, and people are saying it's great. So I'm like, I wish I'd seen it now. So I have to go and find that in a movie theater.
Being someone that's such a cinephile, how did you not see Soderbergh's latest film?
Well, because I didn't get to go to a Q&A, which you've not talked about on camera or on microphone.
We talked about it on the last one.
Did we talk about it on the last one?
No, we didn't, because I don't think that we did one since the Christophers came out. I can't even remember.
Tell us about...
No, we did. We talked about during the John Williams one. Yeah.
Okay.
We talked about how he yelled at his publicist.
That's fair. Okay. I'll take that one then.
Yeah.
It's a shame, though, because he started saying he's going to be using AI a lot more. Didn't he?
You know, if there's anyone that can do it, I would say it's him. You know?
Really? Yeah.
I really do think Soderbergh could pull it out. I think he's got it. Well, Chris, what are we going to do for the next one? What are we doing?
That's on you, mate. I think this is your choice coming next, right? I've done a few now. I've made a few choices. I want to see what Brendan's bringing to the table.
All right, let's look at the calendar. Let's see what's coming soon. We've got The Devil Wears Prada 2.
Mate,
I think
do you know what? We should do
Eilish
something about sequels, shouldn't we?
Yeah. I think the Billie Eilish one, Hit Me Hard and Soft, could be interesting. Granted, I don't know how much we'd be able to say with that, but I think that's a consideration. In consideration. Let's see, where's the coming soon? What else we got?
We can talk with the Billie Eilish one. We can talk about bringing concerts and concert films and concert experiences to theaters and to cinemas, because I think that there's genuinely a big market, and I think that I'm not the one who's like being the forecaster on this, but I think that studios are recognizing that there is a market for concert films and for people to go and enjoy a musical experience on the big screen rather than live, if they can't make it to the live version. Do you know what I mean? And I think that it would be really cool to see something like a Coachella being put on cinema screens, and people can go and experience Coachella, you know, live. Like the Justin Bieber, even though it was him playing off his laptop and people went crazy about it, right? How many people watched that? You know what I mean? And how many people would have watched that if you put it as a live performance out on an AMC screen? You'd sell that screen over 10 times over. You know what I mean? I think that there's going to be a lot more of that coming out, and we're going to actually see things like, I mean, who did we have on? You and I had that Jamie, the producer.
Yeah.
And she did one with Halsey that was like a music video film, 40 minutes long, whatever it was.
Yeah, and with Colin Tilley, I believe.
That was finger on the pulse. That was way back. And that was, you know, when she was talking to me about that, I was like, that's going to be a thing. We're going to see that. Harry Styles or somebody big is going to go, do you know what? I'm going to do this. Or like Taylor Swift, I'm going to perform in Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro, and we're going to put it on screens all over the US on AMC. Yeah. And they'll sell it out, and she'll make quadruple the money that she's making on a tour. It's definitely going to happen. Can totally see it. Okay. Sorry, tell me about Hokum.
No, I think you're spot on. This one has my attention right now. I don't know if you've been looking into this movie. I think this looks good.
That's Ted. But yeah, Holcomb does look good.
No, this looks good. I know we have
it's
Obsession.
Adam Scott. Adam Scott won the award from CinemaCon over in Vegas for this movie. Yeah,
I've heard good things. People love this director. I haven't seen any of his prior work, but I was looking at it. All right, IMDb officially sucks with all the fucking ads.
It urged you to say Devil Wears Prada and threw you an ad for Devil Wears Prada, mate. We're getting real-time ads right now.
People
if I say couches, I'm getting stuff up on the screen. Sorry, go on.
I love how anytime you click on something, the ad has to just overtake the whole page.
Yeah.
You know? But I heard his stuff's good, so I think that one could be up for consideration. Chris, I think I'm going to have to noodle on, and we're going to have to announce this one on Instagram.
Yeah. When's Box Rooms out? Back Rooms, not Box Rooms.
I don't know when that... I think that comes out next month, too. His and Curry Barker's new film come out. It is his first big studio feature, being Obsession, comes out. And I saw that he just landed that A24 deal with Texas Chainsaw Massacre and the film that I think he just wrapped up with Aaron Paul. Aaron Paul did like a massive post saying he's one of the best directors he's ever worked with. And the kid's like not even 30 yet.
Wow. This Kane Parsons, right?
No, this is Curry Barker.
Curry Barker, sorry. Yeah, okay. I want to see that Boots Riley one as well. I Love Boosters or something. That looks great. And there's another one that I saw the ad for before Michael that was about Is God Is. You see that?
What is that?
Right. I can't remember who's in it, right? But it's about this guy, Sterling K. Brown, apparently set fire to a house with all of his family in it, and the two girls escaped the mother, and they've got horrific burns, and it's a revenge story. And that's basically the trailer, is that. And I'm like, I'm in. That looks cool. You know what I mean? Looks like Coen Brothers-esque.
Dude.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good movies. We're about to enter that stride. And of course, we have The Odyssey. Well, Chris, this was an awesome session. I'm super excited for those that tuned in. Thanks for chatting. We're going to announce what the next one's coming up. And we've got a lot cooking, especially as we enter into the summer months, as we get into some blockbuster movies. I know July is going to be a big one, and I can't wait to continue this going.
Me too, man. Thank you so much for talking today. And anybody that has listened to us talking, if you want to go and see Michael, go and see it. If you don't want to go and see it, that's entirely up to you. It's, we're not here to push you either way. We're just here to talk about the film and the filmmakers and what our thoughts are. So thanks very much, 100%. Everybody, for joining us. And we'll see you on the next one.
Later, y'all.